Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctors as they travel the Vortex and arrive at episode number 383. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Renewed.
Good.
Renewed? What'd you do to renew yourself?
I'm here. I'm not at home dealing with family drama.
Ah.
Sometimes that just does wonders.
Just getting out of the house.
Just getting out of the house. Yeah, we had an all right week. We did have a fun time. Missed you at Patrick's shindig.
Oh, yeah, that was...
celebration thing. We went to Kansas City and saw Deadpool at Alamo Draft House, and then went to a lovely little place called Pawn and Pint. But it's a place where you go, and it's basically a bar, but it's got a room full of tables that you can play board games.
Huh.
And card games and stuff like that. And they've got a whole wall full. I mean, it's very intimidating almost. And they've got them broken down like cooperative strategy, light strategy, and everything from, Ticket to Ride to Axis and Allies to stuff that I've never heard of. All the big ones. What's the Settlers of Catan? And I mean, if you've heard of it, they had it.
Wow.
And it's like $5 that you pay, and then you can play anything in the.
Oh, for everything. So it's one-time fee?
One time $5 fee to walk in for the night.
So it's a cover charge.
Yeah, cover charge basically. And you play whatever you want, and then you pay for your booze. We had fun.
What did you think of the movie?
You saw it, yes.
We saw it. I saw it. Well, I saw it.
You saw it.
Myself.
You didn't take Mason and the.
No.
Probably a good move.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's really great. I think the first one is still funnier, but maybe that's because I kind of knew the humor going into it, what to look for and what to expect. But I think this one's a better movie.
I don't know that I like the first one better than this one. I liked this one. This was fun. It was good. I agree. I think the first one's funnier. I think it's got a lot more funny moments. First one feels like there were a lot more ad-libs. This one felt a little more scripted. But I think this one did a lot more fourth wall breaking than the first film did.
Oh, especially those cutscenes.
Oh, that was very meta and very funny. But overall, it was a good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if it was as good as the first one. Keith, did you do anything this week?
Not really. Caught up on some shows.
What'd you catch up on?
Finished Arrow, the most recent season of Arrow. It's not been super great. I was behind on Supergirl. I've been catching up on that a little bit. And finished Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
We still have one to go.
You still have the last one then?
Yeah. We got current this week, but then obviously the new one aired
Friday.
Yeah. So yeah, we won't get to watch it until Wednesday.
Man.
It's a good finale.
Satisfying finale.
Yeah. I did finish Armada.
Oh, how was it?
It was really good. I really liked it.
As good as?
Yeah, I think so. It's good in a different way. The pop culture references are still there, is strong, but it's more subtle. And it's more ingrained into the plot, if that makes more sense. Than, like, as opposed to painted over the surface, it feels like it was baked in.
Okay.
It's like a lot of Ready Player One, it could almost be frosting, and this is
So it feels like more like plot than plot device.
Right.
Okay.
And it's a fairly common plot, and based off a real conspiracy theory, but thoroughly enjoyable. Let's move on to some news. Denver Comic-Con is happening in 25 days.
Have you got your tickets yet?
I don't. But they have announced some Doctor Who guests, including David Tennant, Matt Smith, Billy Piper, and John Barrowman. So 2 Doctors happening Father's Day weekend. They've also got a long list of other kinds of guests.
If anybody would like to gift us tickets, we would certainly take advantage of them.
And plane tickets, we'd take those too.
We'll put them to good use.
Actually, I'll pay for the con tickets if somebody just wants to pay for my airfare.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. Just the con tickets, though.
Just the con tickets.
Not the hotel.
Not the hotel.
Hotel? Going out one day, coming back.
Well, we could drive it.
That would be at least the hotel.
But then, you got 18 hours.
He sleeps in the car on the way down. I sleep in the car on the way back. We can do it.
Nope. Not driving it.
For some of us in the room, that's not even the first time we've done that.
Yeah, that's true. Nope.
And let's be
not
honest.
Driving that.
All of us in the room have done dumber things.
Mark Shepard's going to be there too.
Did you happen to see that? There's a fifth.
A fifth.
Who gets?
And Josh Adams, artist.
Oh yeah, he's on. He does the comics, doesn't he?
He did the comics.
Did the comics?
He doesn't
yes.
anymore.
Keith interviewed him on a.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's why that name
Planet
sounds familiar.
Comic-Con.
Planet Comic-Con. Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He did that one. Did you happen to see a slightly off subject segue? But did you happen to see that Star Wars Celebration is going to be in Chicago?
I did see that.
Yeah, that's a lot closer.
Just throwing that out there.
Back to the Midwest, which I hadn't been here for a while since Indianapolis. So it's been in Florida and California, but
don't think I'm going to get to go.
Just throwing that out there.
that's next year. You got a whole year planned. For
that's true. And that's kind of it for news. Not
Quiet
a whole
news.
lot.
Not a lot this week. All right. Well, let's move on to feedback.
First up in feedback is Chrissy. She sent this in post-deadline. So it's in relation to last week's podcast.
She writes, "That's democracy for you. Dear Vortex Boys, and to round out the New Beginnings trilogy box set, we have Castrovalva. This is a fun story. There's still some technobabble about block transfer computation, which I still don't get, but this time there's more visual chaos to illustrate what the Master is up to. Though this time, watching the story was the first time I realized Adric in the first episode was a projection sent from the Master's TARDIS to sabotage the Doctor's TARDIS. Because mumble, mumble, mumble something, science, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Adric is a trap. The Doctor's wonky regeneration was interesting to watch. Everyone certainly had fun with that, from the script down to Peter Davison's acting. I do have to wonder if the TARDIS chose the cricket and frock coat outfit for him. It was just there for him to find. I love the concept of the Zero Room, a place with no outside interference where the Doctor can reset his brain. Too bad that was ejected when the TARDIS has to get away from Event 1. But the Zero Cabinet becomes a thing, at least for a while. Castrovalva itself was nice. I can certainly see why the Master designed it that way. A calm and peaceful place for the Doctor to recover after regenerating. But then everything goes crazy. Again, we get a visual representation of the chaos and destruction the Master wants to bring to the universe, so I can follow these ideas much better than I could in Legopolis. I loved the way they filmed the Escher-style confusion. Makes me wonder how they managed that on a typical Doctor Who shoestring budget, but I'm impressed. The characters are really good, down to even the little girl the Doctor talks to in episode 3. I think that's the one she's in. Also, the companions get plenty to do. Tegan and Nisa take the reins of Team TARDIS while the Doctor is indisposed. Even Adric, although he's a prisoner of the Master, is interesting in the screen time he does get. I feel like this is a solid and interesting beginning for an era of Doctor Who, and I'm not just saying that because 5 is my Doctor. I get something out of this story every time I watch it. I wish Castrovalva had been real, meaning I wish it hadn't just been an illusion created by the Master. It would have been cool to have the Doctor return for a vacation in a short story or something. It feels like there could be some rich history or lore to explore here. And then again, I felt the same way about Talkin. And look what happened there. Anyway, I'm rambling. Oh, I did want to mention one bit of behind-the-scenes trivia because I think it's funny. I have an odd sense of humor. At the very end of episode 4, when the Doctor and his companions are going back to the TARDIS, you can see Adric holding his stomach and looking somewhat queasy. Either in the commentary on one of the DVD documentaries, someone mentions that Matthew Waterhouse had a bad stomachache that day of filming, and he went having to find a bush to be sick in between takes. Good thing he didn't have a lot of lines that day. Anyway, this is a fun story, one which I watch again when the mood strikes. Watching it makes me want to watch 5's era in order again. That's all from me. Talk to you later. Chrissy.
Thank you, Chrissy. And
Chrissy, I think they can pull it off on a shoestring budget because they only had to build one small set.
keep reusing
and
it.
just reuse it and shoot it different ways. And it's perfect for Doctor Who.
You guys are so mean.
Well, that's true.
And Chrissy, we apologize for getting this. We were actually getting ready to leave last week when your email came in. So
We were on time last week.
and this been a couple of years ago when we did record later, and then couple that with the fact that she's in Mountain Time, so it's even earlier for her than that probably would have got it at showtime. But anymore now, we record earlier. So, and then there's that hour difference. But thanks for sending. I'm glad we got it in this week.
Speaking of Talkin, I did finish Primeval, and I was a bit wrong in my remembering. It does tie in a bit more to Keeper Talkin than I remember. I realized.
I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure how far into it you were, but there's.
It's not until the very last.
Right. We didn't want to re-spoil it for him.
Into the last story, which that makes the story way better now that I have an understanding of what the Keeper is and what they're doing.
Right.
Why the importance of them building towards the first Keeper ever.
So your estimation of Keeper went up, or your estimation of Primeval went
Primeval.
up? Okay.
Yeah.
And his estimation in correlation to Talkin went up as well.
Yes.
I thought there was a kind of a reveal near the end about the Keeper. And it wasn't even near the end. It was in the last part of the story about the background of the Keeper and that kind of stuff. But I couldn't remember for sure because it's been enough time that I listened to it. But
it's really the resolution of the story of how the Doctor defeats the enemy.
You said that last week, and I thought, I still think there was a really big connection, but I don't want to say anything in case you're still listening. But I'm glad you brought it back up this week. It's not like I would have spoiled anything. You'd heard it before. I probably would just jogged your memory.
That was, okay.
I just jogged your memory, I suppose.
Yeah. But. Well, that's okay. It made a nice... the impact of the reveal of that, the finale of that story actually landed this time instead of just being lost on me.
Sorry, we spoiled that.
That's okay. I didn't remember it.
Yay! We got one.
Up next in feedback is Ben. Ben writes, "Will there be singing? Hey guys."
Apparently not.
Nope.
We didn't start the segment that way, so apparently not.
This is kind of a special occasion thing, Ben. It's not an every week thing.
Now he's going to stop writing every week.
Oh, so now it's my fault.
Yep. He's writing every week.
He said it, not me.
He's writing every week hoping that you'll sing.
I tell you what, I'll make a sideways deal. Is if we can verify whether or not the last song that I sung was a repeat or not, then maybe I'll consider pulling another one out of the
bag. He writes, as Dumbledore, as played by the awesome Sir Richard Harris, might say, another week gone. Here we are on Sunday morning again. My house is pretty quiet at the moment. Not for long, though. In a moment or two, I'll be waking everyone up so that we can get ready to go see Deadpool 2. We're all very excited, as we love the first one. Yes, my kids are going. Yes, we understand the movie's contents. It's not every parent's style, but we have chosen to be very open with our kids. In our case, they can handle it. Moving along, when we get home from the movie, there should be an Amazon order containing Black Panther on my front porch. It'll be a Marvel kind of day. In other words, nearly an ideal Sunday. For those wondering, I'm still reading Acceptance by Vandermeer. I'm nearly 3/4 of the way done. I could have been done by now, but there have been days where I just didn't feel like opening it up despite how good it is. This should work out, though, as I received an email from the fellows at Candy Jar Books informing me that the new Unusual had been dispatched. If I time things properly, I will finish one book as the other is delivered. Lastly, the wife and I attended a concert the other night. The first in quite some time, to be honest. Despite my ankle still being in a cast, I had a great time. My wife noticed that I was in a lot of discomfort, though, and managed to score us some better seating from security that allowed me to sit and prop my leg up. After the show, we went and hung out in the lobby, where one of the bands was supposed to come out for a bit. They did and were extremely nice. They allowed my wife and I to take a picture with them. The band in question is Bad Wolves. They are relatively new, and if you're not familiar with them, perhaps you've heard their cover of the Cranberries song Zombie. It has reached somewhere around 100 million views thus far. An interesting and sad fact about the song, they were to record it with Dolores O'Riordan the day she died. The band decided that all the proceeds from the song and video will go to her children. That's it for now, guys. I hope you have safe travels through the Vortex. Take care.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. I saw your picks. First of all, I was surprised that with your bad ankle, you climbed all the way up into the nosebleed seats where they had you initially. But I'm glad that you enjoyed the concert. And I also saw the photos you posted on Facebook with the band, and that's very cool.
Yeah. And it's nice that they are donating all the profits. Not many bands would do that. That's it for feedback.
All right. Well, let's move on to our reviews.
The 2018 Free Comic Book Day issue. There's no synopsis.
Except for the Who is the Doctor synopsis at the beginning, but that's kind of a recap.
Which, that's not even a recap. It's
No.
just an info dump of if you've never picked up a Doctor Who comic before or ever seen the show. So the first one is a 10th Doctor kind of story.
For the most part, it is.
It's a Gabby story called Catch a Falling Star.
Can we call it a multi-Doctor story?
We can, in as much as
There's two.
there is two. It is more multi-Doctor than Supremacy of the Cybermen.
Yeah, at least these two show up together. No, they don't.
No, they don't. But they're in the same issue.
They are in the same issue. Well, they were in the same issue at the
Yeah,
end of the
that's true.
Supremacy, but
So I have a feeling that this is a huge spoiler for the end of the season we haven't read. We haven't finished.
yeah, I wondered about that myself. But
Because it starts with Gabby falling through space and remembering her time with the Doctor, which is kind of a nice recap of everything that's happened to her so far. And then she's rescued
and
by
what's
the 12th
happening to
Doctor.
her soon?
Yeah. And at the moment, and so if this is the future, if this is the bridge, like it comes across like it's a children in need bridge, kind of like the one that they
Between
did for
the
the seasons,
Journey's End and
Time Crash.
Yeah, Time Crash.
Well, Time Crash
Well,
was the bridge.
the one
Journey's
between
End and,
Journey's End and Journey's End and Christmas Invasion. No, what was Eccleston's last story?
Parting of the Ways.
Parting of the Ways and
Yes.
Christmas Invasion.
Yes, much like that one.
Or even Time Crash. Yeah.
Yeah, although more the first one than Time Crash, since you can still jump forward without having seen Time Crash.
Well, with Time Crash, both the Doctors show up together and see each other too. So
True. So there's the multi-Doctor aspect.
right.
This time they don't see each other. More than anything, I'm excited to see 12 and Gabby together in the future.
Yeah, this one, this set the tone for how I felt the rest of the book went. You're not going to get anything out of these stories. There's nothing there. There's no substance. There's a recap basically of this and her impressions of what she's gone through. And there's a little bit of a spoilery instance that I kind of felt the same way. I was like, oh, well, I think this is where we're going for the end of the 10th Doctor's year that we haven't finished yet. But then to see the surprise there of her going towards the light and ended up in the TARDIS with the 12th Doctor was pretty cool. 12th Doctor was pretty cool.
and refresh me, where did we leave off with 12? Had we finished his season or not?
I haven't finished anybody's seasons yet. We
I
ended
don't
up
think
with
so.
Lost Horizon, Lost Dimensions.
Oh, that's right.
That's the last one we did.
We're right
yeah.
in the middle of it.
Well, we've got one more
Well,
segment that hasn't
I think
been,
We got one volume
we've got
of everybody left.
Yeah, we've got a
which
third.
hasn't been
We
collected.
finished
so
9,
it's
and
just
that's the only
problem.
one we did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming out soon, according to the back of this.
It's still for me, and I thought this would be fixed when I got my prescription fixed, but I still struggle with reading the font for her writing. I appreciate what they're doing there, and I love the artwork, her art that she does.
Right.
Well, most of it is not even her art; it's just kind of recap art. But there is one splash page in there that it's not even a splash page, but a full page that does have her with that kind of Disney-esque drawing that she does, and I like all that. But I just every time they write in her voice, like she's writing in her journal, I struggle to read those words for some reason. Now, the rest of the book was fine, so I know it's not my prescription. It's just really I struggle with reading
that
those
particular
words.
font.
It is that font. I had to go back, and sometimes I'd have to read not a panel but a block of text just because I missed something or left a word out or something, couldn't figure it out. But anyway,
It doesn't bother
I think
me.
it's a me problem, though.
Yeah.
I think it's a,
We can transcribe it for
I
you.
don't think
I
it's
think
an
it's
issue
gotten
problem.
better as they've done it, but I didn't have an issue with this one. I had it the first time they ever did it. I did, but
Next time I'll read ahead, and if there's any passages like that, I'll translate them. I'll call you and do a Google
You don't have to
thing.
translate them. Just
And then
read 'em
Gabby
out loud
said
to me.
this.
just read them out loud to me.
Creepy computer voice.
And then we got the Seventh Doctor in the Armageddon Gambit, which is a nice little. There's not much there.
A nice little do nothing story.
Yeah, we got a nice little an interesting look at the TARDIS, which is odd meld of 7 and 8s.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's setting up its
Seventh
run,
Doctor's run, yeah.
but
Well,
I can't
miniseries.
say for sure.
I think it is. It to me felt like a prelude, is what it did.
Right.
It kind
Now,
of
if
like
it'll tie in, I don't know.
yeah. Well, I don't
Other
think
than being a pre-credit sequence.
I don't think it needs to. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
think. I think it's a prelude or a pre-credit sequence. I don't think it really was spoiling or setting any plot device up, other than
Which in its
it was an introduction of 7 and Ace to the comic readers.
Right,
Basically,
yeah.
what it is.
which in it was written by someone different.
George Mann, wasn't it?
No, this one.
Oh, this was the new one. Yeah,
John Freeman wrote this one.
yeah. Well, it's not new, but Freeman's a writer
Right.
in the comics before. But yeah, he's
Yeah, it was kind of
So we got confirmation on, is there a Seventh Doctor miniseries? It's
Yeah.
not an ongoing.
Right.
no,
It's
it's not
a-
ongoing.
it's just
It's
a-
it's a
miniseries.
3 or 4 issue,
Yep.
shorter than a normal miniseries.
Okay.
Not shorter than the Third Doctor's. The Third Doctor's was only 4 issues, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
I think it was 5.
Was
I
it?
think so too. This one might only be 3 then. I remember thinking it's one.
This is the
short
shortest
than
of
the
all?
other ones. Yeah. Which we thought was kind of fitting for the Seventh Doctor since he had so many shorter stories.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the art was. I really enjoyed the art in this
I think
one.
the art was the best in this one.
Yeah.
Well, this fits very much more in with what you think of as comic book art. With
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is kind of your,
yeah.
this is what you like.
That's kind of Silver Age style.
Yeah, that.
There's not much plot though, so
Nope. There's not much plot to any of them.
no. The
That's why I say after I read the first story, I thought this kind of sets the tone of how this entire book's going to be.
Which we shouldn't be surprised. None of the Free Comic Book Day
No,
stories
they really
ever
are.
have much plot to them.
They
Well,
really
it's,
are.
you know,
It's supposed to be a taste of the runs, so you want to go pick some up.
it's a freebie, and it's
Oh yeah,
well, especially when you split it up into stories like this, you're getting maybe 6 pages
yeah.
you know,
For that,
per story.
The last one I thought was a waste of space.
the Midnight Feast.
It felt very 11th Doctor, but it has nothing to do. Nothing.
No,
it's him running around trying to find a
This is the one
Something
written by
to-
George Mann.
yeah. Oh, that's right. This is him running around trying to find something to eat. Pretty much is it. And he goes to a diner and he does settle a argument, but that's about the only thing that he does in the whole thing, other than
Yep.
finding that he does like tuna sandwiches and settles for it at the end and takes Alice's sandwich.
Makes Alice eat some weird.
Well, he didn't
bone
make her,
stuff.
but because of what he said, sometimes it's
Yeah,
some things that you
yeah.
don't know you'll like, and then she tries it, and then she makes that bad face. So, yeah, that one was kind of worthless, but
It kind of has the feel of a Moffat
it was very
Internet
12th.
special.
It was very 12th Doctor. It feels like
11th
or
Doctor.
11th Doctor. It feels like the first part of the 11th hour.
Oh, yeah,
That's what it
yeah,
feels
absolutely.
like, and I think that's what they was called.
It feels like, and like the first one felt like a Children in Need. This felt like a latter day
Yeah.
special that they would do for a charity. Maybe.
One of the Night in the TARDIS episodes. That
Right.
Yeah,
didn't
Night in
have
the
anything.
TARDIS. That's exactly what this
that's
feels
what
like.
this feels
Is like minisode. The even to the point that goes, and he orders fish fingers and custard.
Yeah. This diner is kind of cool though. The Zygon sitting there eating
Yeah.
different aliens that we normally don't see.
It's a very
Was it a displaced in time and space diner? Is there a waitress that looks suspiciously like somebody that he doesn't know yet?
No.
no, it wasn't Clara.
Missed a trick.
Yeah. That's it.
There's one more
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there was a single page.
single page. The adventure begins this fall for The 13th Doctor.
That's her coming out of the TARDIS after it lands.
The art is phenomenal.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I really like that. I like to have that scanned in and hanged up on a wall somewhere. I really would.
Yeah.
I would hang that.
Enlarge it a little bit.
Yep.
Free comic book day.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a sneak peek of things to come.
I'm not sure we even needed to review it after having read it now.
And we'll probably come across some of these in graphic novels in the future and go, did we read these?
Yeah, I'm sure.
As we always do.
On the repackage. This seems really familiar.
Yeah.
You can skip this one. All right, Sean, take us into this week's topic.
Well, we thought now that Keith has finally seen all of them, that it was time to talk about regeneration.
Yes.
What do you think? Are you for it or against it?
I don't know.
He's a horrible moderator, isn't he?
Do you like The Wizard of Oz? No, for me, I think it's a stroke of genius that, especially back in the 60s, that they were able to take this concept and throw it out there, and just because it's a science fiction show, recast the lead actor and keep the ball rolling. And nobody else has done that. And successfully. I mean, really. And I mean, you get recasting in movies, with Bond and various things like that, but not to this level where you're acknowledging the change in personality. That's just kind of amazing.
I almost think it could have only worked initially in the 60s. Like I think audience viewing habits were so different then that it was easier for them to accept, oh, okay, that's what he does, as opposed to if this hadn't been done previously and someone to try to do it now, I think no one would like it and it wouldn't go over as well. But I think because of the 60s mindset of viewing at the time, it was accepted and then built upon as the years have gone and made it even better and better as it's gone through.
I can't think of another, we've had television shows that have replaced the leads with, who are the Duke Boys' cousins?
Yeah.
Or Galactica 1980, where it's not Starbuck and Apollo, but it's another blonde guy, and it's like,
or there's Bewitched.
Yeah, or so and so's leaving, and we're going to replace them with their cousin, or their brother, or their well, it's going to happen on Lethal Weapon apparently. Wrote off the one guy.
Valerie did that.
Yeah,
they couldn't negotiate contracts, so they killed the character off. Had to change it to the Hogan family,
and it lasted another season? That
a couple, I think,
because
because it was Valerie, and then it became Valerie's family, and then it became the Hogans, and because they brought Sandy Duncan on, and they got another season out of it after that, after they brought her in.
Normally, the ones that I've kind of seen it happen, you get kind of one more season to peter things out, and nobody, with Scrubs, they'll change the whole cast and make it a teaching hospital, and nobody likes that kind of stuff when they do it. So I think you're right. I think that maybe there's something about...
And it's so rare that they're literally swapping out actors to be the same character.
Yeah.
I think we're talking apples to oranges in some of these examples, though, because with Doctor Who, they just changed an element. They didn't change the format of the show.
Exactly.
And so they went straight along, and all they did was change their actor, and they gave it a reason for changing. And so I think that's why it was acceptable. I think if you did that now, I think it still would work. I disagree. I think it still would work now. But I think what we look at now is they change an element of it, and then they, as you said, with this, Scrubs becoming a teaching hospital, or the Hogans. I mean,
they revamp.
They revamp and they change it. Sometimes out of necessity, but they revamp, and I think that's where they skew it. Doctor Who sort of they stuck with the same concept. They still had companions that were traveling in the TARDIS with the Doctor, going on adventures and seeing some familiar enemies even at that point. So I think maybe that's what made it work so well. You said stroke of genius, and I agree with you, but I think it was accidental genius. I think it was situational genius.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
They were presented with a problem, and they said, well, this will be the fix, and let's give it a try. And so I think being sort of a situational stroke of genius, I think that's what I think impresses me, is that somebody even back then said, why don't we just make him the same guy and just his face changes? That's what blows my mind, is that somebody back in the 60s sat down and went, it's just the same guy. It's just the same guy. We're going to pretend he's somebody else. We're going to make it a reason, but it's just the same
We're
guy.
not going to put him in a wig.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
you know,
And,
force
and
him
try to
into
make him
Hartnell.
look like her.
And suddenly that gives the show a chance for renewal for a long time. Because now when this guy's done, he just changes faces again. And when this guy's done, he just changes faces again. And I don't think anybody back in the 60s thought that this was going to go 50-some years, 50-plus years. But it is interesting to see that they sat down and thought, well, forethought enough out that, you know, we've got a few years on this if we just continue this format. That's what they kept doing, and I think that worked. And the big changes are from black and white to color, which they do during a regeneration as well, which is one of those things where, again, they leave the format of the show the same, but they do a fundamental change in another area, but still a doctor companion. Now, granted, they granted him on Earth, and so you took the TARDIS element out of it. You still had him doing the same type of thing. Mm-hmm. So the format stayed the same, but you just had a change around that format. So I think the regenerations have, number one, in that case, been okay, we have to fix the problem we have here. We've got to let one actor go. We've got to bring another actor in. And then the next regeneration said, well, we're stepping into a new era. Let's add color here. You know, it seems like every time that at least in the early days that they regenerated, they came up with something different. So.
Yeah.
Also, changing the personality of the Doctor, I think, was a clever idea, because that gives you enough renewal or refreshing on a character. Again, keeping to the same format, but giving something new to it that kind of makes it feel new and not so tired. It could have felt really repetitious had they kept things the same.
Yeah.
But each time that they regenerate, they change enough of it, maybe to its detriment with Colin Baker's Doctor, but that could be argued later as well. But regeneration, I think, is a wonderful, happy accident.
Definitely keeps the show fresh when you go for 50-plus years. It's very important to make sure things don't get stale. And because, and if you think about some situations, you could plop down different doctors, and while the outcome will remain the same, how they get there will be different. So you can even have similar stories and still have such a different story, because it's a different actor playing the role differently, which is quite remarkable if you think about it.
That's a really interesting experiment. I would like to see that. I would like to see a book, a short story series or something where it's the exact same invasion. Whatever Force X is coming in and going to do problem Y, but you've got Dr. Z. And so each one of them handles it in a different fashion, even though it's the same set of circumstances. And I think that would be really kind of an interesting idea.
Do you think personality would change the outcome, though? Because, I mean, really, it is the same guy. You would suspect that he would probably initiate the solution the same way, because it's the same guy. He doesn't lose his memory. He doesn't lose it, but his personality changes. Do you think personality would make a difference?
I think so. I mean, as Keith said, you're going to wind up with the same end game. He's going to win, But the way he goes about getting there,
each doctor approaches winning differently.
Yeah, first Doctor not as compassionate as the fifth Doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, third Doctor would just go up and karate chop everyone until you won. Second Doctor would not do that.
Fourth Doctor wouldn't do that.
No. So
the seventh Doctor would play 3 games of chess and have a grandstanding plan that we didn't know he had formulated off screen.
Right.
For this particular scenario, just in case it ever happened.
And in some way, we'd end up hurting Ace, and for her own
probably.
good.
Right, because he didn't tell her about it.
Not emotionally hurting Ace, not actually physically hurting Ace, but for her own good.
Right, to help her grow.
Help her grow.
8 would stand around going, "Stupid, stupid Doctor," before lucking his way in. And we'd love them all for it.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting experiment.
I don't know. I'm kind of curious about that now.
I think as you get to the new series, they would probably become a little bit closer to the same story.
Resolution. Yeah.
Of reaching there than the classic Doctors.
Potentially.
11 would just be a little more bouncy about it. 12 would be a little more mopey about it.
Right.
But
nine would
solution.
be angry about it.
Yeah, angry about it.
War Doctor would come in and just blast everybody.
His would be the only difference illusion.
Yes.
Who won? I did. I
And
always
12
win.
would just sass them into oblivion.
There may be something to this. We talked a little bit touched on this last week with regeneration sickness kind of becoming a thing. And having seen all of these now, do you think it's necessary?
It didn't become a thing. I mean, it was a thing from the very beginning. 'Cause I got to thinking about when you brought that up last week. I thought about it this week. It's been a thing since the beginning. If you remember in Power of the Daleks, it's not manifested in the same way, but it's always there if you look. Because even from the first Doctor to the second Doctor, he's very aloof, very quiet. He's enigmatic. He's mysterious. Probably would have been a better word to choose there anyway. He's mysterious. Polly and Ben don't know what to think of him, and he's not forthcoming with any answers to him.
He's almost a little hostile.
He is hostile at times. He immediately pretends to be somebody else, which wouldn't necessarily have been something that the first Doctor would have done. And so he pretends to be the inspector when he's mistaken for him, or not the inspector, whatever the title was.
With the badge.
Yeah. So I think that there was a different, and the reason I say that is because, granted, he was trying to find his legs as how he was going to portray the Doctor. So he didn't really have a lot to go on. So in real world situation, from a Doyleist perspective, he's very much just trying to figure out how to play the character. From a very Watsonian perspective, though, knowing that that his Doctor changes and he becomes much more warm to Ben and Polly, and he certainly becomes more forthcoming with information, and he even becomes a little more skittish, and as the second Doctor sort of does, whereas he isn't so skittish in that first set. You can relate that to the fact that he has just undergone a regeneration, and his first regeneration, if that's to be believed. Well, it is. It's canon. And but his first regeneration, and so he's having to deal with it in such a way that I would consider that his regeneration sickness.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's always been there, and it's a retcon always been there, but it's a great. It feels in some ways that the writers, when they decided, we'll give them a regeneration sickness, also looked in retrospect and said, okay, well, you could have somebody explain it in their head. That is why he acted this way. And it's a great way for the Doctor to or for the actor to really get into the role and figure out how he wants to do it. Or she. Now, of course, it was written in initially for very briefly for 3. So whatever. They didn't name drop it, but they actually put him in a hospital.
It is written. Yeah, it is written at that point.
It is written in, but not named drop.
And this is only the second regeneration at that point.
Right.
And I can almost excuse that one easier because it was a forced regeneration.
Yeah.
So, we don't know.
Aren't they all forced?
Well, one is forced by...
The War Doctor's wasn't as forced. He feels like he's holding it
He was
back.
the only
but
one. He was the only one at old age.
He had a fatal blow or anything, so...
Oh, the first Doctor
So
didn't
did the
either.
first Doctor,
I mean, they kind of tried to make it feel like it was the proximity of Mondos.
Wearing a bit thin. I mean,
I think he was just... I think it was old age. Then he just regenerated. But, yeah, I mean, 4 doesn't really... he's got just the initial confusion of waking up, but that takes all of 10 minutes and he's done,
You don't
He's
think
got the zaniness.
You don't think the zany wardrobe
that's
model
that's part of the waking up.
That's to me that's part of the quote unquote sickness. I think the sickness takes different severities or levels of severity, but I think that's his. I mean, and I am doing a clever bit of retconning here, but I think that's his, is going in and being very playful with look at some of the outfits he came in. He wasn't serious about any of those.
Right.
On the other hand, maybe he was, because in his mind he thought, oh yeah, this looks good, and then realized, oh wait a minute, that doesn't look good. Again, that's his brain kind of playing with him, like, what are you thinking there? That kind of thing.
I don't even know that he thought it was a bad idea. It wasn't until the Burger said, or somebody else said no, that he turned around.
There were quite a few dejected looks.
Maybe. And I think
he totally would have worn the clown outfit.
But I think because
Viking.
I think because he lands on a sensible outfit for the most part, for the Fourth Doctor, he lands on a sensible outfit, and that's again from the Doyleist perspective. That's for the benefit of the audience. I mean, they wanted to have some fun. We have just changed Doctors. We're going to have a little bit of levity here. We're going to have some fun with it. But again, from the Watsonian perspective, I don't think the Doctor's a clever man, and while he is very eccentric, the Fourth Doctor's personality specifically, I don't think that I disagree. I don't think he would have easily wore the clown outfit, because I think he would have realized that, yeah, I like to be a little bit off-putting and put people off on the wrong foot with me, but he doesn't want to make it, to him that would be beneath his intellect to be presenting himself that way and have at least in his mind, the superior intellect of somebody else. That clashes for him. Same thing with the Viking. So I think that's why I put that into that this was probably him going, oh, this is a good idea, putting it on and realizing, oh, what the heck was I thinking? And allowing the companions, the Brig and Sarah at that point, to kind of bringing back down to earth and kind of make that little snap like, yeah, you're right, that's not going to work. And so to me, that's his regeneration sickness there.
I think the severity of the sickness varies throughout all the Doctors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, it's much worse when we get to 5. Just like...
And 6.
Yeah, but just like it was bad for 10.
And 7, for that matter.
Yeah. He's so confused through most
Well,
of it.
he's also hit his head.
Yeah, that's true.
Drastically.
He hit his head so hard that he regenerated.
No, that is not why he regenerated. He hit his head while he was regenerating. You wait till you listen to the final adventure.
Okay.
There's a reason why he regenerates. He just happens to hit his head while he's in his regeneration.
Oh.
Yeah, just wait till we get there. I
Retconning.
really quite enjoyed the
that's big finish.
Sixth Doctor Final Adventures. It was good.
Okay, what about 8?
8 died. He got screwed up on the table. And that was the first time, I think, that the Doctor, I think that was the first time that the moment was not prepared for. I mean, even falling from the radio tower, at least the Watcher was there to sort of ease the process over. Right. With the Sixth Doctor, it's the same thing. The Doctor knew what his fate was, and was gallantly saving Perry and taking her back to the TARDIS to get her away from Castrovalva, knowing that he was poisoned. It's hard to argue 6 and 7 because you guys aren't familiar enough with the Big Finish story, but 8, I think that was the first time the Doctor was ever like, oh, this is it. It's done.
Lying there as he slips into a coma. Really? San Francisco?
And I think that at that point, the Doctor is so, first of all, ill-prepared for what happens. That there's no preparation for the death. And second, that he conceivably was in the morgue not breathing. So there's a lot of regenerative tissue regeneration that's happening on the inside first before the outside. And I think that's why it happens in the way that it does. That he's in the morgue for a while. And who knows, maybe the cold refrigeration in the morgue slowed down that process of regeneration
he says later
as
that
well.
the anesthesia.
Yes, it was the anesthesia. You're right. It does.
What almost ended it.
So I think
but in a way, I think that is for my argument. Because the Eighth Doctor, other than the memory loss, which is explained by the amnesia.
His is amnesia, yeah.
Explained away by the anesthesia, he pretty much hits the ground running and goes.
He does.
So
you can make the argument going into the War Doctor also.
And so for the most unprepared regeneration, where there wasn't prepared, it was a legitimate, dead.
Perhaps he just wasn't aware of the regeneration sickness because of the memory issue.
I think that's an excellent explanation.
When you're not sure what's going on at all, let alone with your body, how would you know you're having?
I don't remember who I am, so how do I know this isn't normal for me?
Right.
I think that's why it comes across that way.
As a viewer, though, that we've been exposed to I'm saying that it doesn't. I'm saying that it seems like not every doctor suffers regeneration sickness, and certainly the severity of it's not the same.
I think
and you're saying that it is.
I think every. No, I'm not saying the severity is the same.
Well,
I think
but you're saying that
I
everybody
think
hits it.
everybody has a form of it, and it manifests itself differently for each one, and the severity of it varies from minor to extreme. And so, I'm pointing out that that's his. So that's his regeneration. The amnesia simply. And I think the trigger for it being that is because it was so quickly and abrupt. But you're right. He does recover. However, when we look at it from the Doyleist perspective, he only got an hour and a half worth of a movie. And he's only on screen an hour and a half of the time. You've got to get going.
They decided of all the things to cut. That's
and
what we're
20 minutes of that movie is Sylvester McCoy in the role. The Doctor doesn't even show up as the 8th Doctor until about 20-some minutes into that film. So...
Now, it's a little bit harder to argue the sickness going into the War Doctor and going into Eccleston because
we don't know.
It feels like there's a gap missing that we haven't seen.
I disagree going into the War Doctor. I think the only way, the reason I can argue that, and you could go back to forced regeneration with that one, but he makes a choice to use the elixir for the regeneration. So I'm wondering if that is almost... You're right. We don't see if there were repercussions after that. There could have been. But I think I like to believe, at least from the perspective of what we've observed, that because he took the elixir, and he was obviously already dying. They were keeping him alive.
Right.
Or he was keeping himself alive. But I think choosing to take the elixir, because that elixir is if you believe the canon that has been set up in the existing universe outside of the television series, that elixir is essentially the secret to what gave the Time Lords their regenerative powers many years ago. So you're going back to the base source of the mystery, or the mysterious material that gave the key. And so maybe you don't go through that if you get it from the source and not from passed down through genetics or whatever, however it's passed from one to another, or a sparkly mist through the universe.
Through a crack.
Through a crack, yeah. Through a crack in your universe.
Or an invisible mummy.
9 is kind of the same situation where we don't know how far into his regeneration he is that we see him. We don't know if there is repercussions, or
we can assume it's not very long because he looks in the mirror. Hasn't looked in a mirror yet to see what his face looks like.
There's at least 2 different stories we've read that are set in that time period, though. So.
It's true.
And we know he took a trip on the Titanic.
Right.
Well,
and he was standing on the grassy knoll when Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh yeah, so there's 2 other. Not a lot of reflective surfaces in the past.
Well, see, David Tennant's 10th Doctor had a farewell tour before he died. Eccleston's 9th Doctor
had a hello
tour. He regenerated. He visited several different places and then hit the ground running as the Doctor.
Okay. Well, you
it kind of bookends it if you think about
it. You just got done fighting the Time War. You're entitled to a vacation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know why
I'm going to go see
Dallas
disaster and tragedy.
And Titanic, but okay. I guess those would appear to be light comedies compared to the Time War.
Well, it was to ease himself in.
Yeah.
Wait! Here it comes. My favorite part. Back and to the left.
All right.
They're fixed points. You can't do anything about them.
He went from billions of deaths to a few thousand deaths to one death. One death. Well, 2 eventually, but
we're a little morbid.
But of course, 10 had the whole long bit of sickness, and I think 11 had it too. He was just off in the TARDIS. I think most of it, aside from the zaniness of the food, was dealt with when he was going off and coming back for Amelia in that 12 years or however long
I guess
it is.
I was trying to think. No, it's right off the heels of the thing crashing. But you're right, because there's a 10-year gap in Amy's timeline. Amy was gone for 10 years.
Well, we don't know how long
he could have traveled for a while before he came back.
I don't
believe so either, because he believes that he just showed back up.
In his mind, it was.
Yeah.
I skipped over that minute to arrive in this minute, so for him it's instantaneous.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true. But he is going through. He's going through it while
Well,
he's
I don't
trying
doubt
to
it. I
find
mean,
The right
the
food.
right food.
Bad beans. That's it.
Yes.
You're Scottish. Fry something.
So apparently, as you get older, it affects your digestive tract. When you,
And Capaldi was very concerned about his kidneys.
yeah. And we saw his. And
Yeah, he was very. He went through a. There's the third Doctor, the fifth Doctor, and the 12th Doctor, and the 10th Doctor all go through a I have to rest and rejuvenate
Yeah.
period. And that seems to be necessary for their regenerative cycles. It's interesting that it's only on those that it takes that manifestation, that in other situations, although I guess you could argue that the 8th Doctor's was much restful because he was in the morgue for a while. But it's interesting that it does take that sort of, obviously, again, from Doyle, it's just whatever the writer decides to fit the situation. But taking it from the Watsonian perspective, they all have something, but it really, really does manifest itself
So I guess
in
the
a different
key
way.
to this part of the discussion will be the 13th, will be Jody, because you can even rationalize 12 with being that this is the either a new cycle or that he's beyond his time frame at this point.
This is a new cycle, you know that. He's already started his new cycle as the 12th
We
Doctor.
still don't know how long the cycle is.
Right, but is it going back to that argument? Is it just another cycle of 12, or is it yes, he can do this as many times as need be now because the Time Lords have said here.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not going to know until
Yeah.
the show gets canceled. Then we'll have to retcon an answer out of that. But
It's insignificant now because the only problem we had was it Deadly Assassin sets the finite number, but Night of the Doctor, no, not Night of the Doctor, Time of the Doctor wipes the slate clean by not explaining. So we don't have a go back to. Well, now in the Time of the Doctor, they said it is so many. Well, now we don't because it's left ambiguous on purpose. So I think it's disingenuous to argue. Well, we don't know because they purposefully left it open. So I don't think you could argue
that's trying to fit a unknowable quantity into the nice little fan box.
Right,
This is how the rules work, and it's like
exactly.
you're not going to get that.
And
broke the
Moffat
rules.
spent many years covertly and subvertly and sometimes overtly unraveling a lot of the rules that were set forth by fandom for the most part.
But so I guess Jody will be the kind of defining answer in a way, is if we get a Regeneration Sickness episode to start the new season, I'll be like, well, okay, yeah, but if she hits the ground running, I'm going to argue it.
All right.
Because we don't know. Does it bother anybody? I'm very petty. I'm going to let my flag, my fan flag fly here for a moment. It bothers me that all the new Regenerations are the same and all of the previous ones are not. And I know that's just
You mean
from a special effects standpoint. That now we get the glowing. This is how it works. And there's a part of me that's very happy that we've settled on something, and yes, this is what it's going to be now. And there's another part of me that's like,
there was, aside from 6 and the 7, because 6 wasn't there. There's always been kind of a dissolve between the faces.
well, sure, a dissolve, but
It's kind of it.
not a sparkler explosion.
Well, yeah, there's a definite divide between classic series and new series.
So in the way that the Silurians look immensely different from their predecessors.
They're cousins. There was a drop line about
that's
that.
true.
Yeah.
That is true. But then that's all we see now. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when to represent the Silurians, that's all you get. At least the Sontarans. I mean, they're more cleaned up, but they still look.
They're
like
vastly
Sontarans.
different throughout the classic series too.
That's true. But that's just bad clone batches.
Right.
Sometimes.
Right.
I mean, we've had ones with master beards too. So.
Now, this is. I feel like we finally have gotten to see good clone batches coming out of the Sontaran Empire now.
At least more pleasant to look at. We've even had batches of tall Sontarans.
Yeah.
Second Doctor.
Those orange ones from the two Doctors are so bad. So bad.
I'll wait till you see Shakedown. They don't even look like Sontarans, although they were a little worried about
There's a reason.
copyright infringement on that. So.
That doesn't bother anybody else, huh? It's just me.
It's only bothersome because it's noticeable, but not enough bothersome that it takes me out of anything, out of the story, out of the continuity.
If anything, Twice Upon a Time is the one that bothers me. Because it feels like there's a divide. Like I can almost retcon it in my head that the elixir that 8 took did something that's now causing the sparklers. Because that's when it first started.
Ooh, that's
okay.
Good.
However,
Keith.
Twice Upon a Time shoots that in the head when you see one glowing.
When you see what?
One starts to glow like a sparkler in Twice Upon a Time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they did
it
add
ruins
it on there.
that.
Yeah, and that almost special editions. Like, well, now that you've done that, do you need to go back and for when they release all these on video?
On
do we need to
Blu-ray,
add
yeah.
in the Blu-ray? Do we need to add the
I guess we'll find
sparkles
out if they
on
do
them
on
now?
Tom.
I agree. It's one of the it's a tiny little nitpicky thing. It's kind of the same as a black and white versus a color. That it's just not quite the same.
You can
universe,
almost
but,
imagine
yeah,
it's
not
actually
enough to get me
happening
out
in
of
a
it.
black and white one. You just can't see it because
You
it's
just can't
black
see
and
it
white.
because it's black and white.
I think what bothers me about staying with the glowy regeneration is we've now had 2 instances where we've gone through regeneration and the TARDIS explodes. That was one of the things that bothered me about Twice Upon a Time was that it really kind of felt like the regeneration between 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Suddenly between 12 and 13, we're getting that same thing where the TARDIS interiors explode. And it's a grand gesture in order to show that change is coming. And I
Right.
understand why they do it from that perspective, but it almost feels tired and true. I'd almost rather see the regeneration somewhere besides the TARDIS, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, had it been more than one regeneration between the two, I think it wouldn't feel as tired.
Yeah.
But because there's only one in between them, it's
And
a little...
that's another thing that's bothered me is the regenerations, with the exception of I guess 6 and 7 both regenerated in the TARDIS. But I was going to say, with the exception of those 2, there was nobody regenerated in the TARDIS. I guess the first Doctor did.
The
he
first
fell on
Doctor
the
did.
floor.
You can technically argue the second Doctor did.
Yeah, because they sent him into the TARDIS as they
And he fell out as the third Doctor.
Right,
and I think
right.
there's even a fan film that they got
There is.
Pertwee to
It's-
film.
Well, yeah.
Not that that's canon.
And
but
it's very cleverly done. And yes, there is a fan film that finally I think got finished, but it does have Pertwee and another man playing a in between regeneration of the Doctor. He's like 2.5. Yeah.
and then 4 didn't.
4 did
He
not.
was the first that didn't. Well, 3 didn't either.
3 didn't. Well, no, yeah, 3 regenerated on
at the
the 4
beginning.
into 4.
Right.
Yeah, 4 did it
Outside the
in
TARDIS.
HQ. So Tom bookends both outside.
4 was outside. 5 was inside. No, yes, 5 was inside on the
inside.
floor.
Inside.
6 was inside on the floor. From television perspective.
7 was just outside.
7 was no,
He
he
was
didn't.
shot
He was shot outside. He regenerated
That's
in the
true.
hospital.
He regenerated
Yeah.
on the table or in the morgue.
8 but 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They've all regenerated in the TARDIS.
War,
console.
not 8.
Or I'm sorry. No, yeah,
Yeah,
War.
8 was
sorry,
on,
War 9, 10.
Yeah.
8 was outside. War
All the
9,
Moffat
10,
ones.
11, 12, yeah.
Pretty much all the new
All the
series.
Russell T Davies and Moffat ones were
Yeah.
inside. But anyway, that being said, I think that's getting old. To me, that's a bit tropey now for Doctor Who, and I think that the blowing up of the interior of the TARDIS. I don't think that's necessary. We cleverly established that these are desktop themes at one point. So just have the Doctor come in and go, pull a lever, and the thing just changes. I mean,
that would be really cool.
I think I'm tired of the grand blow up of the TARDIS regenerating.
Just so that we have an excuse to rebuild the console room. Yeah, I agree. I would like to see the reverse, because the other thing that you get with the regeneration, you get the regeneration sickness, you get the wardrobe bit, where there's always a gag about, what are they going to wear?
And a joke about previous costumes.
And a joke about previous costumes built in that. I would almost rather them flip that. I would rather see the Doctor come out fully clothed, this is the outfit, and then pull a lever, and we go through 3 or 4 old console rooms. Yeah. And then decide, or
even ones that don't get, we see but don't get used.
Yeah,
maybe they didn't even, like one or two old ones, and then maybe a one that we've never seen before, but that isn't the one they end up landing on.
I think that would be a clever gag to do it that way.
That would be.
But what do I know?
What about the stories themselves that tend to contain the regeneration into them? Are there ones you guys prefer over others?
The interesting thing about it is, if I step through them, the 10th Planet is one of my favorite Hartnell stories. The War Games, although it's a massive 10-part story, is a great story, and that happens to be Second Doctor's. The Planet of Spiders comes along to be the first one that I wouldn't rank that as one of my favorite Third Doctor stories. It just so happens to happen in that one, but I don't think it's that great. So I don't think it's that great of a story.
It's the first one that almost feels like a goodbye to this Doctor.
Yeah.
It feels like it's written to be his farewell, as opposed to tacked on at the end.
And I wonder if that comes down to the fact that even the Second Doctor, I imagine Patrick Troughton, they probably didn't have a lot of heads up that he was going to be done. I don't know for sure, but I wonder if maybe they didn't have a lot of heads up, especially since they were in the middle of a 10-story arc.
Or they knew he was coming up and thought they were going to have more than one story leading up to it, and realized, we need to just make one.
We just need to make it
I
here.
thought they knew, because it was the incoming new production producer knew. They had already set in mind that they were going to go to Earth, and that they were making the transition to color, and that we were getting a new companion, and all of that had already been kind of set in motion, I would think.
But did they know Patrick was done?
I would assume so, that was all going, because that's all part of the changeover. There's no reason to strand the Doctor on Earth unless we're. So I would think they had that planned kind of in advance, and subsequently the last part of the War Games, where we're dealing with, you've been caught, you can't get these people home, you need the help to do it. Call in the Time Lords, and now he's busted. Is kind of tacked onto that story, but
that's what I think
it's done in a way that makes sense for the.
Yeah, agreed. But I think that's what it comes down to, is the War Games feels tacked on. So that kind of makes me wonder, is they didn't necessarily know how they were going to do it. But with Planet of Spiders, that feels like it's orchestrated from the first story, the first episode of that particular story.
Yeah.
And so I think that maybe that's why it makes it feel like it's
and it might
prepared.
not feel that way if it weren't for that big epic chase throughout most of this. Part 2 or part 3, where Pertwee gets to fly or do
part 2.
Drive absolutely everything
Hovercraft,
ever.
Who-mobile, fly the Who-mobile.
When it's such a trait of that Doctor. Had that not been there, it might not have felt so fan service for the Third Doctor.
10 got a farewell tour. So did 3.
3 drove a farewell tour.
He was hitting the road. And we kind of discussed Legopolis was not.
Legopolis with me gets better and better every time I see it, and so I think for me, I think that was a good farewell story for him. So no, I you'll differ with me, but I think that was a good story for him.
Now, Caves of Adras.
Caves, which is my all-time favorite story, still to this day, is an incredible so long.
I think the part of the brilliance of Caves is the sacrifice he makes for Perry.
I think the problem, you wanted to just say 6 is he doesn't really have a goodbye story.
Right.
They end with the trial of the Time Lord, and go on hiatus and really don't know what they're going to do with it until in the hiatus Colin's let go, and so Colin not coming back to shoot his regeneration scene, which would have been at the beginning of us. That would have been the first time that the regeneration starts at the beginning of the story, and it still is to a point because it's
which would have been really interesting.
So and if you count that as Colin's regeneration, even though it's McCoy in a wig, that I've never made any bones about the fact that I do not like Time of the Round. I don't think it's a great story by any means. So,
but I like that one.
I do like Sylvester's. Oh, that then becomes the first time that a regeneration is seen at the beginning of a story, which will be the movie, Doctor Who the movie. So I like his regeneration.
Yeah.
I really liked Night of the Doctor. If you're gonna kind of count that for his regeneration.
And we like Day at the Doctor.
Day of the Doctor. Oh yeah,
for the War Doctor.
I forgot the War Doctor's regeneration.
Can't forget the War Doctor.
Yeah. Parting the Ways was a good story, so I would count that as very high up. As
what's nice, one of the things I like about Parting of the Ways is for the most part the surprise of the regeneration.
Yeah.
Which is, well, most fans knew it was coming, because of the announcement, but it wasn't. It didn't felt built up to as much. It felt like a gut punch of a regeneration as opposed to a slow march to death.
Yeah,
like End of Time.
Yeah, it's a slow march to death in less than a few minutes because we do realize what's happening early enough on in the episode, but it's still at the end of the episode, so you do still get the gut punch. Yeah, as opposed to.
But that's also if you're a new fan who came in on at Rose and don't really understand how it all works, it is a gut punch.
Especially as an American fan that doesn't necessarily even know that Eccleston only had one season. So.
Right.
Those are definitely. Yeah, I really I've said this before. I think we need to find a way of being able to go back to not knowing. Because the gut punch of the two gut punch episodes I've had from Regeneration stories were Legopolis, which was devastating to me for 30 years, and The Parting of the Ways, just because I was catching up with them and didn't know that the announcement had already been made and that this is already a thing, and so didn't know that was the end of his story. It was just, oh, Doctor Who's back, sweet. Oh, well, not this one. And both of those are really, really every other one of them I've known either because the box art on the VHS tape, or as we've gotten further along with now we're going to have a BBC announcement special. Here's the televised moment that we're going to let you know who the actor is that's going to replace this particular Doctor. So, but none of the rest of them have come close to the emotional impact of those two, even knowing that they were going.
I think they could still do that while having an announcement of who the next Doctor is going to be, if they just changed how they did their regeneration. If it wasn't
like regenerate
mid-season,
they made it look like no, we weren't that dumb to know to think that was what was going to happen.
But if they actually did that, the gut punch of that would still have the impact of. But he's gone. I didn't emotionally prepare myself for that.
Yeah.
When it's at the end of a season or Christmas that there's the higher chance of regeneration.
See, I think knowing that the Doctor's going still, and then seeing the regeneration, knowing it's coming, the expectation and anticipation of it, to me is still enough. Number one, I've kind of resolved the fact that we'll never get a situation where we won't know something's coming. It's hard to do in this connected world now. So maybe that's part of it. But number two, I think even knowing that the Doctor's going and coming, I think an excellent example is, I think knowing Eccleston was leaving, his wasn't so much gut punchy for me, but it was very emotional, even though I knew it was coming. I think even David Tennant's, as lousy as a 2-part story as that is, David Tennant's was pretty good. It was. We look back at it now, the more we watch it, and I think we're able to look at it and go, okay, it was maybe a little bit too long, and we can be more critical about how it happened, but at the time was very highly emotional for me. specifically
the final
11th
segment
Doctor
of it was highly emotional, and still is.
And so to me, what I'm saying though is that's enough. I don't need that.
You don't need
I
the
would rather
surprise of
have
it.
surprises be Missy showing up and being the master. Those are the things that I think they need to do a better job of surprising me with. Regenerations, no, I don't, because I think if they started doing that, and they would lose the trust of a lot of fans. Maybe not me specifically, or maybe some of the diehard fans, but I think that they would start to the middle of the road fans. They would lose the trust of somebody. Look at David Tennant, how well loved he was by the non-fans. Mm-hmm. And then when he left, how hard that was a punch for the show, because so many people were like, "Oh no, bring back David Tennant. We love him so much." I think if you did that mid-season for somebody that they got as attached to as they did with him and didn't let them know it was coming, I think that would be even more of a disservice to maybe your middle of the road, average, not so diehard fans that are going to stay on with the show. I think that would serve as a detriment to the series.
Yeah, it's probably also
the popularity.
It's a disservice to the actor that you don't get the farewell tour. You don't get to this because we're pulling the surprise plot wise. So I can see why they don't, but I still wish there was a way, even if it was okay, we've cast the new Doctor and she's going to start Christmas next season, but then it happens Christmas this season. Okay, you got me. I was not prepared for that, but wow, something along those lines where
I don't need that surprise anymore. I don't need that kind of surprise. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think it can surprise us in other ways without having to. I think that the actor deserves to go when it's their time to go. So
it just means they got to work harder for those surprises.
That's right. They got to work harder for the other surprises.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell
like
me
not
that John
spoiling
Sims is coming back, and then as soon as I see him and go, "Oh, hey, there's John Sims," but this is him.
And I'll freely admit I'm coming
or
to
spoil
this.
the Mondasian Cybermen.
Yeah.
That could have been a great surprise too.
Us from week to week going, "Oh, I bet John Sims in the box. Oh, I bet John Sims." Well, no,
Nope.
And I'll freely admit I'm coming to this from a purely American standpoint, having not been around for the show from time to time, where again, over in England, it was not a big deal. And even Peter Davison said, no, everybody kind of knew it was coming. So it's, it was only a gut punch to those of us that didn't know. But.
Well, let's wrap up our discussion here because we're running a bit long this week. But any final thoughts on Regeneration?
Would you, if you had the ability, would you want to do it yourself?
Regenerate?
Yeah. If it meant that, just like with the same rules, you become a new person. It's like death. The old Glenn goes away, and this new skinny blonde guy sits up in his place. And he's still Glenn, and he has all the memories, but he's completely different. Would you do it?
Yeah, I think it'd be all right. I think it'd be like, and Andy has talked to us a bit about, like, it'd be a lot like reincarnation in the Buddhism. Buddhist. There we go. And that the Buddhist idea of reincarnation. I think that that idea, which is very parallel to what the Doctor does in Regeneration, I think that would be okay. Going on in life and be able to see things, maybe even from a different perspective if you have a different personality. Having all the same memories, having all the same knowledge, but being able to live as a different person. I think absolutely I'd do that again. Or do
I think
that.
it depended on my situation at the time, where I was in my life, how old I was. Would I want to regenerate now? No. 40 years from now, maybe. We'll see.
I'd also like to have that chance, though, that you never know what's going to happen to you. I mean, we could step out the door and be gone next day. So the opportunity to be able to regenerate would certainly gives you borrowed time. It gives you more time.
I suppose that's an added, if you knew you were going to die or, I got shot.
Right.
It's happening now whether you want it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't typically get to choose your regeneration unless you're Ramona too.
That's one thing we didn't talk about at all.
No, we kind of focused on his, didn't we?
Yeah.
I'd do it in a New York minute.
Yeah.
Immortality, baby. Everybody presents it as a curse in science fiction. Oh, being immortal is so... No, screw you. I do not care. I want to be immortal.
All right, Sean, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up on the schedule next, if you're following along at home, next week we are delving back into the Brigverse with a look at the new Unusual. And just a reminder again, that is a change from the originally scheduled programming of Man from Yesterday. But we flipped it since New Unusual did hit the streets and is available by Adrian Sherlock and Andy Frank Mallon. Yes?
Yes.
Good. So we will be covering that novel. And then the following week, we dip into some companion chronicles from Big Finish with The Magician's Oath and, boy, I thought I could do this from memory, something of Peladon.
Bride
of Peladon. No, it's not Bride. It's
Oh, it's no, you're right. It's Curse of Peladon, isn't it?
No, Curse is an actual episode.
You're right. We don't. It's not Bride yet.
It's not Bride
there's
yet.
There's one in there that's a companion chronicle because Bride is actually a main range.
Yeah.
I just read your schedule.
I did too. I
a
just
day or
looked it
so
up.
ago, and I can't remember what it was. We're doing a Peladon story.
We're doing one of the Peladon stories that's in the companion chronicles.
Well,
so go look those up.
We'll be reviewing the Redux of Plain Dead, won't we? Which is included in the novel.
That's next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's already a week ahead.
I should
I know,
specify
but
that.
go back to include that short story.
Yeah,
in there.
that will also be, the short story will be included next week as well.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about before we close this show
The
out?
Prisoner of Peladon.
Prisoner of Peladon. Thank you, Keith.
That's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.